Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Alisa Onishi.
In our show tonight, we'll cover the long-awaited reemergence of symphonic music in Hawaii with the new Hawaii Symphony Orchestra.
We'll talk with Ken Robbins and Vicky Cayetano, two leaders of the recently organized Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. And we'll talk with a number of the musicians who will play in the new orchestra.
First, we took a trip to the new Musicians Union building at 909 Kapiolani, and we talked to a number of the musicians there.
To start, we talked with Jim Moffitt, Associate Principal Clarinet and Bass Clarinet, and Norm Foster, Clarinet and E-flat Clarinet.
I joined the Honolulu Symphony in August of 1981, so 30 years now.
Okay, and
August of 1985.
And from what I hear, you two knew each other before you started.
We did.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time.
Since 1968. We grew up in the same hometown and studied with the same teacher.
And where was that?
That was Urbana and Champaign, Illinois, actually twin cities.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It actually is.
And were you sort of in high school together at the same time?
No, because he was in Urbana and I was in Champaign.
Oh, okay.
But we were in college together at the University of Illinois
That's true.
for part of the time.
Yes, we were.
And even played in the university orchestra.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing,
It's
actually.
amazing. And how did your paths finally cross again? I mean, there was a time, obviously, between music school and here where you both went off and did your own thing for a bit, right?
I think we kept in pretty close contact,
Yeah.
actually, throughout those years. Norm played in Hong Kong, and I was playing in Birmingham, and then here, and I lived in Chicago, and I remember he came and visited me once, and I used to see him sometimes down in Champaign, Illinois. And then Norm auditioned, and I was on the audition committee, and he was clearly one of the most outstanding candidates, and the committee really liked him, and he got the position.
That was in Chicago, because I was at the University of Illinois at the time, and the opening came up, and I drove up to Chicago, because the orchestra went on tour at that time to Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York City, looking for musicians to fill the open positions. So it was easy for me to just drive up to Chicago and take the audition, well, the audition wasn't easy, but...
Right.
He's not telling you that in those days we had a preliminary round by tape.
Okay.
And I listened to 270 tapes.
Unbelievable.
And there were two that stood out. One was Norm's, and one is the woman who's now in the Los Angeles Philharmonic.
Yeah.
And the audition bore that out, that those were clearly the top two players.
And I also knew her at the University of Illinois, so...
Everyone knows everyone. Right? So Norm was
It's a
highly
small world.
skilled and did a great job.
Then we interviewed Iggy Jang, Concertmaster.
And so your earliest education obviously was in France. Where did you go to conservatory?
Well, when they refer to the conservatory in France, they refer to the Paris National Conservatory. They also have another one in Lyon. So they refer to actually those both schools. I just happened to go to Paris. And it's a little bit different also in the educational system in that you don't have to finish high school to go there.
Okay.
So I did go there. I was still fairly young. I was actually 12.
Wow. When you went to Paris Conservatory?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's how it happened. But so I was 12 and a big move for my parents.
Yeah, I was going to say. They didn't go with you?
Actually, they decided that my mom would come with me.
Okay.
Because it's too young.
Yeah.
And it just happened that my sister actually, who's a pianist, also went to that school.
Oh, okay.
So it was the three of us, my father in my hometown, which I was very sorry to leave at that time.
Yeah, sure.
Because all my friends were there and the school. But, you know, my musical friends were to happen in Paris. I happened to meet a teacher who taught at Indiana University.
Oh, wow.
And so he invited me to further my studies there, which I did after getting a scholarship. Now, Indiana University is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but for music school is a very renowned school.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers, faculty, students from all over the world, you know, from the US, of course, but from Asia, from Korea, Japan, China, and also from Europe, many of them, Great Britain and Germany and France and Spain and so forth.
How did you end up in Honolulu?
Well, after school, I spent some time with the Colorado Symphony, playing in the section, and I learned that there was an opening for this concertmaster chair with the Honolulu Symphony. They were holding auditions in Honolulu, but also in Chicago and New York, and I decided to take the audition in Chicago because I wanted to see what a concertmaster position was like. I always felt like this was something I wanted to try.
It's very different being a section player and a concertmaster.
It is in some ways, yeah. Concertmaster, you don't go to a technical school for concertmaster.
Right.
It's very kind of in that gray area. A lot of intangibles.
Then we heard from Steve Dinion, Principal Timpani.
Is from the opening to Porgy and Bess, which is the great opera by George Gershwin. And this is actually probably the most famous and important xylophone piece that all percussionists need to learn if you're going to play in an orchestra. So people sometimes don't think about percussion including melodic instruments, but there are several melodic keyboard instruments in the percussion family, and the xylophone is the most common one we use in the orchestra. And it doesn't ring very much, but it projects very well through the orchestra. So it's really helpful if you're playing with 80 or 100 other musicians on stage and you're by yourself. The xylophone can cut through just about everything. So composers like to use a snare drum, especially if they want to create the effect of marching band or of military or army or battle kind of sounds. So like an 1812 overture, there's very famous snare drum sounds coming in. So this is a tambourine, which is another instrument that a lot of people will be very familiar with and don't necessarily know what's really involved in playing a tambourine. So composers like to use tambourine, especially if they want to give the impression of the sound of they want to make something sound like Middle Eastern music or maybe Spanish music. So like in the opera Carmen, there's a famous part, tambourine part, that starts off like this. There's a lot of ways, the different sounds you can get on tambourine. You can play very soft and very loud. You can do rolls to make a sustained sound on the tambourine. So you can do a loud one by shaking it very quickly. And you can also make a very soft sound, but you have to do that with, by vibrating your finger across the head. Where we go back and forth between our knee and our hand. And if you ever want to see tambourines played really amazingly well, you can go to South America, see samba bands play. They do all kinds of amazing techniques and rhythms on the tambourine. I think in a way as an artist, particularly an artist who is focused on sound, I think ideally we listen differently to the sounds around us. It really allows you to focus a lot more on something that I think most people don't pay attention to. And I think that's kind of one of the special things about being a musician.
Then we met with Judy Barrett, assistant concertmaster, and her husband Paul Barrett, principal bassoon.
How is it playing in the symphony together and being married?
You know, we're each in our own separate section.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, we go and goes off to the wind section, I'm in the string section, and we have our own even little areas of the concert hall backstage. So, you know, once we're there on stage, I don't really see him till the end of the rehearsal, 2.5 hours later. Even on the break, you know, when we have a break, you know, we're all talking and visiting with our own different colleagues. So it's really nice. And then over the years, we've played a lot of chamber music together too. So it's good. It works out well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And do you both teach as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I teach at the university.
Okay.
I lecture in bassoon at
wonderful.
UH, and I also teach the double reeds methods class. So all the band directors that have to learn all the instruments go through my class. They learn bassoon and oboe.
Oh, interesting. Okay, and you'll teach them so that they in turn can instruct their students.
Right, exactly. It's a methods class, so that we're teaching how to teach.
Is there a music education degree at University of Hawaii?
There is. They have a very strong department. Okay. Yeah.
Terrific. That's great.
So I've actually done too good of a job. A number of my former students have gone on. They're band directors here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool when their students come to me. It's like my grandchildren.
Right.
As it were, I hear them repeating things that I've repeated to them.
And you've also teach privately?
Yes, I teach privately violin and viola.
And viola too. Do you play both?
Yes.
Okay.
Finally, we spoke with Tim Leong, violin.
Back when I was a child, I was taken by my mother to hear the Honolulu Symphony at, the shell concerts and the kid concerts. And so I kind of grew up with hearing them.
And were they one of the main reasons why you decided to pursue the violin professionally?
Actually, that was sort of it just was happenstance that it went that way. In the public school system, there used to be a listening test called the Seashore Listening Test.
Okay.
And if you did well enough in the score, they would let you play music. And this was in, I think, the 5th grade, where I took the test. They said I could actually hear what was going on. And so I expected to play the trumpet or something, pretty, what boys would like to play.
Right.
And so when I showed up for my music lesson, this man came in with a carload of violins. And I thought, well, now I'm in for it because I'll be playing the violin. I'm going to get beat up by the big bullies, But it ended up being something that was life-changing for me.
So do you want to play something?
Yeah, sure. I'll do a little thing that when I teach my kids. I say, this is a violin. It's made out of nearly 100 separate pieces of wood. It's got a spruce top and a maple back. And this one comes from the year 1740 by a man named Andrea Castagnari. And it's a lovely instrument that I found a few years back. And as things developed, the violinist from the period of, I guess a little bit after Bach, this violinist in Viotti, this is the bow that was made famous by him. It's concave in the other direction. Okay. And what happens is that it opened up a lot more avenues of expression because you could use more of it. So as you see, I use more of the bow and more expressive, And then I explained to the kids that there are a lot of types of music. And when we have the children learn Suzuki and they're doing... It's just a stepping stone of little pieces that you build up slowly at a time until you get up to a point where there is more enjoyment because you have mastery. Yeah. And mastery comes in very, very, very tiny steps.
A few days later, we met with Ken Robbins and Vicky Cayetano, two members of the board of the recently organized Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, to get their take on things and find out what's in store for those who love symphonic music in Hawaii.
And what has been the Symphony Exploratory Committee has now actually morphed into the board of directors of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. And we have been meeting weekly, a really fine group of business leaders, community leaders. Vicky is one of our inspirations on our board. And we've come a long, long way, haven't we, Vicky?
Right. We also have people like Paul Casasa, Ostender, Mark Polivka, Mitch Dollier, Pat Choi, Mona Abadir, Gabe Lee, Ken, of course, yourself. It's always dangerous when you start mentioning names, but there's about 9 of us that are involved. And we've been, like Ken said, meeting very faithfully. And I think in a relatively short amount of time, since the beginning of this year, we've made several key accomplishments. One is acquiring the assets of the former Honolulu Symphony. Second is to come to terms with an agreement with the musicians, a long-term agreement. And of course, our new name, the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra.
And of course, we've had the steady hand of Steve Maunder helping us along the way. Steve, who ran the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra for over 37 years, is on board and is really doing a super job in helping us, I think.
That's right. Steve is a real gem for us to be able to recruit, and he's doing this so much because of his love, not only for the symphony, but as he's shared with us, he cannot see how Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, can be without symphonic music. It's not like other states where you can, take the car, go across the line and go see another performance. It's very important for us to recognize that if we're going to be a world-class player for business as well as the visitor industry, we need to have a thriving culture and arts community as well. And I think that says a lot about his commitment. Also adding to that is our artistic advisor, Joanne Falletta, who was for 2 years, 2 seasons, the artistic advisor for the former organization here.
She's got a great repertoire, and the fact that someone of her stature is joining forces with Steve Maunder to advise us artistically is extraordinary. In fact, she sent us a statement, and perhaps you'd like to read what Joanne's thoughts are and the excitement that she has, Vicky, for what it is that we're in the process of putting together.
That's right. Joanne, and I'll quote, "I am thrilled about the season we have been able to put together. Our audience is going to enjoy the artistry of a wide and very diverse group of first-class soloists and conductors. But you've also got to have a business plan and a model that works. And we're very committed to that and understanding of how critical that is in order for it to be sustainable. But when we go forth with this, I think it's really key that the community has to step up to show its support of having symphonic music throughout the state."
We'll be starting the month before APEC begins, and the only thing that we're going to need beyond everything that we're putting together now is you. And for you to come and be inspired and excited and to feel the thrill of fabulous music and of a fabulous team on the stage doing what they love to do, and that's making gorgeous, beautiful music. So what we're doing is just a stepping stone toward what it is that you're going to be enjoying very, very, very soon. Stay tuned, and we'll be making some specific announcements very soon about the season, who will be performing, who will be conducting, and when the productions will be put on at Neil Blaisdell Center and also at the Convention Center.
That's right. Let the music play.
Let the music play.
Yeah.
It was inspiring to talk with the musicians and hear their life stories. Actually listening to them makes you want to be a musician. And it was likewise inspiring to hear from Ken Robbins and Vicky Cayetano to see what it takes to recreate a symphony orchestra.
Clearly, we need to stay in touch with the musicians and the members of the board of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra to follow the action as the orchestra comes together and takes the stage, so to speak, for its first concert, which, as Ken said, will be sometime this October. We can hardly wait, and we know this will be a very powerful experience for everyone involved.
And now, here's our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
On August 25th, the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech will present a program entitled Newsmorphosis Redux, examining how the news media has changed in Hawaii since the closing of the Honolulu Advertiser and the Star Bulletin just a year ago.
On September 22nd, HVCA and ThinkTech will present a program entitled Impact Investing and the New B Corporation, taking a look at what this is and how it can improve investment prospects and local entrepreneurship.
On October 27th, HVCA and ThinkTech will present a program entitled Update on Agriculture in Hawaii, featuring Russell Kokobun, State Director of Agriculture, and others, examining developments in agricultural sustainability in Hawaii since we covered this subject about a year ago. Sign up for these programs on hvca.org or thinktechhawaii.com.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech, but first we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko and Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is the Senior Executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii.
Oceanet, another local tech company, is one of Hawaii's largest and most diversified science and engineering companies.
Okay, Alisa, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like all of our hosts do, Duke Oishi, Lori Wingard, and Alisa Onishi. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
You bet, Jay. For more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor. Help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Alisa Onishi. Aloha, everyone.